So I've been getting a lot of inquiries from people, especially around the seminars I've been teaching, about how to create masking for really complex images, even ones that have relatively simple backgrounds like this one right here. And what I tell people is I use channels. Whenever you encounter a selection scenario where you're looking to select an object, whether it's got really kind of crazy things going on in here like the snow or even somebody's hair, I tend to tell them that channels is going to be the best way to generate a selection, because it allows you to edit the selection visually in an alpha channel. So let's take a closer look at that. So here I have this image of this skier, and I thought this was appropriate since the Olympics are starting this weekend. It only made sense, but here I have obviously a snowboarder. Actually, it's not a skier, it's a snowboarder. He's making a jump, and there's all this snow and everything going on, and what I want to be able to do is to extract not only just the skier, but all these other fragments of snow and all this stuff that's going on down here with the hill and all that. And I just want to extract all that from that blue sky background. Well, traditional selection tools really aren't going to be much help for me in this situation. If I go over here and grab maybe the Magic Wand tool and click in there, it's only going to select a very large portion of it, but it's not getting everything because there's all these variations of color in here, but yet, you know, using this tool just isn't going to work. In fact, most of the standard selection tools in the toolbar, in fact, all of them, to be honest, aren't really going to give us what we're looking for. So that's when we resort to channels. Well, I'm going to jump over here and open up my channels palette, which is grouped with my layers panel. And if you don't see it, you can always go into the window menu and select channels. It'll open up this window here, which is comprised of, in a standard RGB image, is comprised of the composite RGB channel, and then the individual channels, red, green, and blue. Now, what I tell people is you need to go ahead and toggle through each one of these channels and determine which one is the most contrasting to the background and your subject. Now, I can obviously see that in this case, it is going to be the red channel, but even the red channel isn't all there. You'll notice that it's kind of grayed out in some areas, and just what we need in an alpha channel is it to be straight black or white, with black being the unselected area and white being the selected area. Now, the beauty of working in black and white is that you can invert it and just work in two colors. It makes it so much easier to edit the channels when working like this. So now, I can see that the red channel is going to be my best candidate for creating my alpha mask here, but I'm going to take it a step further. Obviously, as I mentioned, I want the sky in this situation to be completely black, and it's not quite there yet. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and use a feature that probably nobody ever uses in Photoshop, because they open the window and they run away screaming because it's one of those complicated windows that I'm never going to learn that. But here it is. With that red channel selected, I'm going to go into the image menu and go down here to calculations. And you open up this, and it's got this giant dialog here. And if you're the first time you're ever looking at this panel, you're looking at it, and you're probably thinking what I thought. I was like, holy crap, I'm never going to figure this out. And then you just do this. Boop. And then you're back to where you started. But here it is, quite simple. I'm not going to explain calculations in depth, but I will just give you an idea. We're going to use calculations to darken up that red channel. Remember how it was grayed out a moment ago? And here's how it works. You'll notice we've got the source 1 box and then the source 2 box. And then the blending down here. So it's really just broken up into 3 sections. What we want to do is obviously stay in the same image. So the source image will stay the same in both of these. And we're on the background layer, it doesn't matter. But what we are mixing here is the channels. Now I'm taking that red channel, we know that is contrasting, the most contrast to the rest of the elements, and we're going to blend it with the red channel again. But this time via a blend mode. We're going to have the red channel and the red channel blend via the multiply blend mode, which makes it darker. It makes the dark areas darker, leaving the light areas alone. So if I turn the preview on and off, you can see we've gone from the original channel, and it's that much darker. So the result of this is going to be a brand new channel in my channels palette. So with all that set in place, we'll click OK. And there you can see Alpha 1 is our new alpha channel. Now, as I mentioned before, we are working in straight black and white. So what we can actually do is invert this and make it easier to work with. So I'm just going to press Command I. And that's going to invert the image as you see here. And we've got a rather interesting scenario going on here where there's a lot of the areas that are dark and light. Actually, the sky background is light now. So what we're going to do is actually press Shift-Delete. And we're going to go into the fill window here. And in the Use menu, we're going to select black. But in the blending section, we're going to set it to overlay. And what this is going to do is completely ignore the white areas, and anything that's black or darker, or I mean a relatively dark shade of gray or darker, is going to be forced to black. So watch what happens when I click OK. Force a lot of that area to black. So I could do it a second time, but it's probably going to then black out more area than I actually want it to. But we've still got a considerable amount of area inside the area of the skier that we need to take care of here. So we're going to grab the brush tool and make it a relatively small edge brush with a relatively hard edge here. And just like we did with that fill dialog, we're going to go down here and change the blend mode of the brush tool, not the layer or anything like that, but just the brush tool itself, and change the blend mode to overlay. That's going to allow us to go in here and paint in areas inside the skier, and without affecting the white area. If I'm painting with black and just click and drag around in the white area, you'll notice it doesn't do anything because it's not affecting the white areas, only the darkest gray pixels. So let's go in here and brush away these areas. Now obviously some areas are being forced to white, which I will go ahead and take care of with the brush not set to a blend mode in just a moment. So we'll just jump in here. And if you click, continuously click, it'll resample a new area, making that area darker all over again. So we'll go down here and just paint in some areas. Obviously these shoes we need to take care of. They're a little bit lighter and is not really affected by the overlay brush very much. So we'll go back in there in just a moment and take care of that. And let's get this area here. So let's go up in here and change the blend mode of the brush back to normal. And this will just paint straight. Now be careful, you don't want to go too far on the edge, because now it's going to paint anywhere you want it to, because it's not in that overlay blend mode. So we want to force pretty much the entire shape of the skier and all these light areas inside to black. Go in here and just take care of that hand a little bit there. Now obviously I could go ahead and spend a little bit more time in detail, really just in fine-tuning this, but I think you get the idea. Let me just black out the area down here in the shoes, and we'll just get this area here. This is the other boot right here. Looks pretty good. Let's go and take this back to overlay mode and take care of the rest of the snowboard itself. I'm just going to start in the black area and click. Hold down my shift key and come down here and click again. And it's forcing the area of the snowboard to white. If you keep dragging over it, eventually it'll just force the whole area to black. So we'll just take care of these last few areas here. And that looks good. Now, if you know how an alpha channel works, any of the area that is white is going to be your selection. Any gray areas are going to be partially selected, and anything black will be unselected. Well, as you're looking at it right now, if I were to turn this channel into a selection, let's just brush out these areas around the bottom here. If I were to turn this into a selection now, it would actually select the background, the sky area, leaving all these darker areas alone and leaving them unselected. Well, I don't want that actually. I want it to actually be inverted. So we're going to invert it back over. I'm going to press Command-I again, and you can see the mask is a little bit better. Now, I probably could have worked the mask in this mode, but I thought it easier to paint black just so it made it easier to define those edges, and then flip it back around to what we have here. Now, you'll notice that the background area still has a little bit of kind of gray areas in there. So we'll just use levels to darken that up and take my dark slider here and push it in. And you notice it forces all that area to black. And if you want to tighten it up a little bit just to take care of some of the area inside the snow, you can totally do that. And once you're done, you simply click OK. So there is our completed channel we created based on the original channels in the image, based on that red channel. It's now a new alpha channel. It's ready to be loaded as a selection. We've got a little tiny piece down here in the hill. Let's take care of that. So now we're ready to bring in and extract our image. So let's go back into our composite channels, RGB channels, back over to the layers panel. And what I'm going to do first is unlock the background layer. And if you remember the cool trick I posted on the blog just not too long ago for unlocking a background layer, just grab that padlock and drag it to the trash. It's such a cool trick. I don't know. It's just one of those so simple things that is like, oh, that's awesome. But, so the layer is unlocked. Let's go into the select menu, go to load selection. In this document, we're going to load the alpha 1, which is that channel we just created. Load it as a new selection. Click OK. There it is, my active selection. Let's go ahead and add, click the layer mask icon in the layers panel. And now my subject is nicely extracted. Now, just so you can see it, I'm going to put a new layer underneath that layer, and let's give it a different color fill. Let's maybe go with black. And you'll notice on this layer, it's nicely extracted, not just the skier, but all these little fragments of snow and all these little areas that would have been just impossible to generate a selection of that using any of the other selection tools inside Photoshop. Now, it may require you to go in here and do a little bit of fine tweaking. I can see a little bit of area above her head there, so let's go on that layer mask. And using the brush in normal mode, we'll just paint those areas away. There we go. And it's taking care of that area quite nicely. So, hope this clears up a little bit on how you can use channels to really take advantage of them by creating very complex masking selections just by going through those channels, toggling through which one has the most contrast to the background of your subject. Now, obviously, in this scenario, it was a solid blue sky. It made it a little bit easier. A more complex background with clouds and such would have been a little bit more work, but it still probably would have worked just fine. But I hope this clears up a lot of the questions people have had on working with channels to extract or mask really complex subjects. Give it a try yourself. Practice on other images until you fine-tune it, and hope you have fun with it.